Good morning, everyone. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. My name is Véronik. I am the Associate Director of Radius, which is a social innovation lab located within the Beedie School of Business at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, British Columbia. Today, I'm going to talk with you about how systems change can happen and is happening when we take the time to center equity and justice in the way we do social innovation work. Specifically, I'm going to talk with you about the methodology and approach that Radius uses to support people in organization in addressing some of society's sticky issues. That can mean a lot of different things. How do we actually eradicate social determinants of health? How do we support a community where a mine has just closed in achieving community livelihood? How do we support an Indigenous person in starting up a business and maintaining it in a way that honors and celebrates their values? I'm going to start now to share my screen, and I look forward to the conversation we're going to have together. Here you go. Okay. One could say that many have long known that we're ready for a next economy, for an economy that's actually more dynamic, more resilient, more sustainable, but more importantly, an economy and a system that's more just, that is a system that actually supports the livelihood of everyone. Depending on who you talk to, this is either a new novel idea with COVID highlighting the cracks in the current system. Or if you talk to others, this is an age-old idea. There are some communities that have been historically and are to this day persistently and systematically marginalized. They've not been invited to the decision-making table. They have not been benefiting from the status quo. At Radius, we work towards this vision of a transformed economy by investing in people's capacity to lead that transformation. We convene spaces for diverse collaborations. We provide the supportive infrastructure to create and test systems interventions. And we make sure that we do all this by fostering a kind of leadership that is about adaptability, equity, and critical self-awareness. I am talking to you about all this today, first and foremost, because if we're talking about systems change and about our economic models, the more people are in the boat, the greater chances we are to slowly move the dial. But I'm talking to you all about this because I'm making this assumption that you too may be seeing the cracks in the system, and you too want to look around at your communities or folks outside of your communities and see everyone thrive. Before I get into the heart of my presentation, I want to take a moment to let you know that I'm speaking to you today from the unceded lands and waters of the Squamish Nation, in present day named Squamish in British Columbia. The soil I attempt to grow food in is a soil that's been taken care of for time immemorial by the Squamish people. The land, as well as the rights to its resources and territorial decision-making, has never been surrendered. The work that Radius does spans the territories of many Indigenous communities, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, the Stolo, the Esquimalt, and many more. I'm deeply aware that I am an uninvited guest on all of these lands, and so were my Scottish and French ancestors more than 300 years ago when they settled and stole the land of the Abenaki people. I'm telling you all this, yes, because I want to honor protocol. But more importantly, if we're actually going to have a conversation around social policy and systems change, it is imperative that we recognize that Indigenous people have been marginalized and have not been invited to be part of the conversation for too long. Yeah. The economic status of some of us and the economic success of some of us has been at the degradation of others, either be it through colonialism or slavery or to this day racism. Radius's offer lies in two different portfolios that are deeply interwoven. On one hand, we do a lot of education and training and capacity building, making sure that folks actually have the tools and the perspectives to engage deeply in systems change and social innovation work. That's helping post-secondary education build curriculum around civic engagement or systems change or social innovation. That's providing a lot of organizations with justice and equity training. The other arm of Radius works on co-creating social innovation lab. Social innovation labs are processes and structures that help organizations and people co-learn and co-create interventions that will actually solve society's sticky issues. At Radius, we engage in these social innovation labs in a way that really centers the needs of the communities that are actually affected by a problem. We also borrow a little bit from the entrepreneurial mindset world, where we help folks create and ideate and incubate and accelerate these interventions for social change. What I'm going to do for the next few slides is actually give you some concrete examples of what Radius does, with the goal to help you understand Radius's current and potential impact in offering a new approach to the creation or upgrade of policy and programs for a number of different organizations. Okay, so activating systems change first and foremost starts with creating a space for collaborative design and collaborative dialogue. What we do at Radius is we bring folks together, a lot of the time multi-sectoral stakeholders that are affected by a certain issue, and we make sure that we, as a guide, provide a space for a facilitated dialogue and facilitated problem-solving process. One could call it a solutions lab. What this space ultimately, or support ultimately looks like, depends a lot on the client's needs. Let me give you an example. I have it on the slide here. For the past year or so, we've been working with the BC Seniors Housing Society. They want to make sure that low-income senior renters can retain access to their rental units and age in a thriving way. So with the Seniors Housing Society's team, we brought together a number of stakeholders, folks from the society, also people from regional and municipal offices, policymakers, but more importantly, people that are at the heart of that are experiencing the problems on a daily basis, the seniors themselves. Together, we go, as we're not the subject expert matter, but we're there to guide and facilitate, we go through a number of different exercises. We make sure that we've got the right problem identified. Many of you will know that so many times great solutions are created, they hit the ground, they don't work, likely because the problem in the first place was not the right one. So through these solutions lab, we make sure that we've got the right problem. We make sure that we all agreed that the opportunity space that we're going to explore are the right ones as well. Once a few ideas are created, we're going to test and prototype them. Some of them are going to hit the ground running. So the impact is there. Sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes 12. But in this case, with the Seniors Housing Society, there's currently 6 ideas being prototyped across the region. That's powerful in itself, but what's, I think, from my perspective, even more powerful to witness is now you have a team or a group of folks from different sectors, speaking a different kind of language in the way they approach the issue, but they've all been trained with, or they've all witnessed the ways you engage in a deep dialogue around an issue. How do you actually identify a problem? How do you actually identify solutions? And the idea is that moving forward, they can actually replicate those on their own. And there's a sustainability aspect there that we empower them with all the tools they need. And then they just can draw on their own leadership to do this work again. Another example is the Refugee Livelihood Lab. The Refugee Livelihood Lab, their main intent is to increase society's capacity to generate solutions that are entrepreneurial and innovative for the social and economic thriving livelihood of and for and with refugee and migrant communities. In this case, we also went through this process of lots of deep relationship building and dialogue and making sure we've got the right problem space and what opportunity areas are we going to explore. But instead of keeping this same group of stakeholders throughout the whole process, we're opening it. So for the past 3 years, every year, the Refugee Livelihood Lab has ran a set of activities and programs that bring 25 to 30 members of the communities through an ideation and an incubation phase. I included the visual on the slide for you to kind of be brought onto this journey. Folks from migrant communities will get together with our with our social innovation lab team. They will learn about the value of their own grounded expertise and lived experience. They're going to do some research in their own communities to say, I've got an idea for a non-for-profit or a business or a policy campaign. How do I even start it? I'm going to prototype it, test it. And then in a lot of cases, it takes hold. So what do? We validate the business model with them. We make sure that sometimes they receive investment and funding. So over the years, that has led to 50 to 75 migrant community leaders being supported through this process and witnessing, I think, increase in their employment outcomes and their skills and their networks expanding. There's about 40 new, again, not-for-profit businesses, service-providing organizations that have been born out of the process. More importantly, though, what's very powerful is that together, this Refugee Livelihood Lab team and the community it has built has been co-creating a new narrative and ways of being that are centered around migrant justice and migrant potential. And I think one could argue that that's a narrative we really need to celebrate and emphasize more in today's era in North America. Last but not the least, what we often uncover in this work is that there's also a deep need to make sure that all of this is grounded on principles of a kind of leadership that is about adaptability, about equity, about critical self-awareness. Specifically, when I talk about this, what happens is that as much as we can work with the community members in, learning how to celebrate and put forward their lived experience and gaining the skills for social innovation and systems change and business or non-for-profit management, if those community members are slowly or rapidly trying to change the system, but the system itself that is holding the problem in place is not budging, it's not aware that it's perpetrating the problem, is not open to the conversation, then we're setting these folks up for failure at the grassroots level because they're always going to meet this solid wall. So Radius a few years ago has made a pretty key, clear decision that we were going to, yes, work with community and with grassroots movements, but we were also going to work with the larger organizations and institutions that tend to hold a problem in place and start a dialogue with them to have their staff and their internal culture be open to a different kind of leadership and be more aware. So we're currently working with a number of clients around the justice and equity journey that a lot of us are on, which is a long and complex one, but one that's very needed right now. I'm going to borrow the words of Cheryl Petty. She's this powerful equity and systems change advocate in the States. And Cheryl says, systems change pursued without deep equity, that is in opposition to light equity, which is like a kind of equity that's just sparkled on top of everything. That's dangerous and can cause harm, because in fact it's perpetrating the problem in place, and it leaves some of the critical elements of systems unchanged. That work of marrying systems change with a deep practice of self-awareness is not one that is easy. So this is the point in the presentation that I'm going to give a big shout out to our team. I am on a daily basis impressed by the emotional resilience and strength of the team I work with. Folks who have decided that they're going to navigate or dance that dance of having one foot in the communities affected by deep system issues and one foot in the system that's actually holding the problem in place, and be that translator in the middle, which requires an amazing array of skills and perspective. I'm also going to thank our partners and funders over the years who have seen the potential of this approach and have been excited on this journey with us. And I'm going to thank all of you today for actually still having the energy and the patience to listen to a presentation. I am like deeply grateful and thankful that you're here this morning or afternoon. And on that note, I will stop sharing my screen and hopefully stop being the only one talking. I'm very much looking forward to actually having a dialogue or conversation with each and every one of you to hear what has been your experience attempting to activate systems change and some of the challenges and opportunities you've witnessed. Merci beaucoup.